Hello everybody and welcome to Dynamic GT League's Anniversaire de Historique for race 1 of 9 from the DGT Seaside, correctly known as the Dragon Trail Seaside, but we kind of use it as our test track. It's also going to be race 1 location, and on the screen at the moment you can see the rest of the locations. Race 2 will be from the Fuji Short, and then we'll head over to Spa, Suzuka for the Grand Prix circuit, Yamagiwa, Monza with no chicanes, Sanquois B2, and then Sanquois A, and then finally Le Mans with chicanes. Now, as you can also see on screen, there will be different tyres at different locations used. Tyre wear will be on times 8, meaning 1 stops should be possible. 2 stops could also be very quick. Race time is going to be set as the first sunny PM, and if there is no sunny PM, then it will be the nearest sunny 2 PM. There is no fuel burn, 5-minute qualifying at each event with a 50-minute race length. So race length's gone up by 10 minutes, could make things a little bit longer. Okay, heading into race 1 then, and let's have a look at what the qualifying result was. So for round 1, on row 1, sitting on pole position, we have Mitch with a fantastic time of a 1 minute 26.445, and he's joined on the front row by DGT League SGP, only 3/10 behind him. On row 2 is going to see Conrad starting in P3 alongside Demon R in P4. Some interesting liveries going on there. On row 3 we've got Steve F1, and he'll line up alongside Fluffy Planet. You can tell which one is Fluffy Planet. He's got a high-vis livery on him. On row 4 it will see Twilight, who qualified P7 with a 1:27.627, and we'll see if there's going to be more 7s for him, and Dave Harp joins him at P8. On row 5 we've got formerly Gary. He starts P9 alongside Bunsel in at P10 with a Do It For Dale livery on his Mazda Monster. On row 6 we see Ridge Blues starting P11, didn't set a time in qualifying, and unfortunately he is the last of the runners today, as we've got a few drivers missing. SRI, where are you? But yeah, a few drivers unable to make it, and it's always a shame when that happens, but I'm sure we will see them for race 2. Okay, it's going to be an interesting championship, or is it? I don't know. There's only one way to find out. Let's go join the commentary team. And joining me on commentary here at the DGT Seaside, it's Connor. How are you, Connor?
Bonjour, Dave. It's the Anniversaire de Historique. I'm looking forward to getting stuck into a new season.
I'm looking forward to the drivers getting stuck in as well. We've got Mitch on pole position, and for the first time in DGT League history, we've got a rolling start. So nobody should be losing it off the start, but we could see a number of positions change as the lights go green. Mitch is going to lead the way towards the start line as we're about to get going, and away he goes. The race begins. 50 minutes of the Mazda 787B around the DGT Seaside. We've already got Fluffy coming under pressure from Twilight, I think it is.
Yeah, side by side, there's a lot of cars behind are going to get good tours and going to the first corner, and it's bunching up already.
Yeah, that they are. Mitch still leading the way. Oh, I think Twilight's ended up, dipping a wheel into the gravel. That's allowed Fluffy to hold on to his position at the moment. David Hart trying to put a bit of pressure on Gary, as well as the noise these cars make is absolutely fantastic. But yeah, Mitch still leading the way. SGP up his chuff. Conrad, he's there as well. Demon R sitting in 4th. Steve F1 though coming under a bit of pressure as Mitch heads into the fast left, right, left chicane. Got to say, Connor, these corners absolutely fantastic in this car.
Yeah, I can't get used to the dartiness of this car compared to the cars that we had last season. It's totally different.
It is extremely different. I mean, it's not just the straight line speed, it's the handling as well. It's in the background. I'm just seeing Fluffy coming under pressure from formerly Gary, but I think Gary's gone wide. Yes, he has, and now David Lopes trying to have a look as Conrad heading into the bus stop chicane, as many of us call it, although it's going to be, and into the wall goes Conrad. I was going to say, and into the wall goes Fluffy as well. I think Rich Blues has hit it as well. I was going to say, it's going to be a focal point of incidents today.
Yeah, I think there'll be a focal point every lap, I think, for many drivers. We see Mitch just keeping his lead in front of SGP. Some good liveries on show again this season. We've got some bright colours and we've got some different sponsors. As Steve F1's going to go for a move on Demon R now.
Yeah, that he is. So, I mean, with the kink, we don't really call turn one, although it is really turn one. But with the side by side now through the chicane, and in the background, Conrad, I think he was dipping a wheel on the gravel as well. Steve F1 gets the move done. You're right, there are some very interesting liveries as SGP is also getting very close to the back of Mitch as Steve F1 just manages to hold off Demon R trying to attack back. So, yeah, we'll see SGP is right up the rear wing of Mitch. And interestingly, through the practice sessions, Mitch has been smashing the wall a lot through the bus stop chicane. SGP though, he's been bragging about how he's been able to take it flat out at 160 mile an hour every lap. So it's kind of like a bit of mind games going on, I think.
Yeah, that'll start very early on from SGP if he wants to get his title back and take it from Steve F1 this season. As we speaking of Steve F1, he just gets close to the wall there.
That he does. I mean, the interesting thing as well with these cars, I mean, yeah, you're right, SGP is gonna play the mind games. He loves it as he's closing in now on the back of Mitch, and actually having a look around the outside, but I think that's just for a switchback to try and get a faster exit out of the corner. Yes, it is, as Demon R making a move on Steve F1 so into the final corner, and that's side by side. No, Steve F1 just manages to hold on around the outside. It can work, that outside line. You can get a better exit. It's SGP darting up the inner outside of Mitch, but Mitch holding on.
Yeah, that's normally Mitch's line around the outside, but SGP's going to get a better run out of the corner now, and he's going to have a look into the... I think that's very brave if he was going to go for a move down this little kink as he come into this tight right-hander.
I mean, the tight right-hander there, I mean, it is pretty much almost a hairpin. I mean, there's two corners on this track that are very much like hairpins. That's one of them. The other one is at the end of the straight after this fast section as Demon R's got a little bit wide behind Steve F1. And interestingly, for the likes of Steve F1 and Demon R, they're not going to want to battle too much, because if they do, Mitch and SGP are going to run away a little bit, and they really don't want to let that happen. Interestingly for SGP though, he's been lightning fast in practice sessions, but maybe he is just sort of sitting behind Mitch and trying to put the pressure on, hoping that Mitch is going to make a mistake in the bus stop chicane. Because Demon R's made a mistake into the barrier. He goes. I think he may have just ejected something out of his mouth anyway, but that is down to the back of the field, and that's what I was going to say. You end up in a crash there in those barriers, you're dropping down to the back of the field.
Yeah, definitely, and I think with these cars as well, the toe helps you if you're on a straight. If you're behind someone going through a corner, it's not really ideal.
It isn't.
We see a few cars coming down the straight now, we see the difference in speed. As we just get a car dipping a couple of wheels onto the grass.
Yeah, we've got to do it for Dale Bunsell, all giving Twilight a bit of a bump draft in a corner, just where he doesn't want it. That means Conrad manages to hold on to the position there. It's David Harp, was it? No, sorry, it was Rich and Gary got a little bit physical with each other. Bunsell is wide, can he save it? You know what, he can. He's done well to hold on to that.
That looked like a panic there. He seemed to flash the lights as well, as if to say, I am going off, don't come near me.
The Rich has got a little bit wide through the chicane, the fast chicane, and it's one of the things, I mean, these corners are absolutely phenomenal in this car, but if you go into them offline, it is absolutely horrible. You can get completely swamped as Demon R is chucking up the inside of Rich in the background. Fluffy, is he attacking Conrad, or is Conrad attacking him?
Conrad's just got past there in that hairpin there as we go through and towards the bus stop chicane.
A couple of cars clipping the wall. I mean, clipping the wall in the middle of the corners isn't too bad. It's actually in the chicanes you've really got to worry about. Conrad now making the move on Davey Harper's formerly Gary, flashing his lights at Fluffy. Conrad making the move. Connor also been shown to be very quick in practice. Demon R, even after his crash, has managed to recover into the pack at the moment, and this is a feature that I think we're going to see over the course of this championship. Two things really. One, the races are going to be 10 minutes longer, and two, the amount that you're going to be able to recover in a race is going to be fantastic.
Yeah, I think the boost will be more prominent in these cars, I think, compared to last season. There's that Fluffy going off there.
It was
going off offline there, and Demon R's through to look at Gary now as well.
That he is. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, because these cars are so much faster. Rich getting dipping a wheel on the grass there as Demon R going side by side with Gary. I mean, in the cars in last championship, Davey Hart, where are you going? That could end in disaster. He's going to get swamped. Is it going to end in a crash? Did Gary and Demon R both drive off the circuit? I think perhaps both avoiding Dave the Hart there, so Davey Hart gets away with it. Gary and Demon R definitely didn't.
Yeah, it's just unlucky there as he was just avoiding action, and sadly it's cost them both there, as we see SGP very quick through that chicane now, and he's going to be on the back of Mitch as we go into this last corner.
He is up the inside, he goes. I mean, interestingly then, perhaps Mitch is taking it a little more cautiously through the chicane there, which is allowing SGP to get a run on him on the exit of it, but Mitch is definitely quick enough everywhere else, because he's got a decent run back on SGP down the main straight, as Steve F1 is sitting there watching and waiting as these guys go side by side. I'm just wondering, Connor, what your thoughts are about how the tyre wear is going to affect these guys today.
Yeah, we've got different tyres this season, haven't we? We've got the racing softs, which we'll see at Fuji. We've got the mediums, which these guys have on here now, and then I think there's a couple of rounds that use the hards as well.
Yep.
I think this is I think if they were on the softs, I think we would have seen a lot of pit stops, but I think the mediums around this track, it'll just hang on. Maybe a couple of guys will probably get away with doing a one stop if they're very careful, but two stop might be the way to go.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right there. The tyres couldn't just about hang on for a one stop, but you have to question whether it's the right thing to do on occasion. As Davey Hart very, very wiggly through the S's once again, and Demon Hart trying to make the move on him and manages to do so. He's also going to try and get into the slipstream of Fluffy. Davey Hart defending, I think, into the hairpin rather than attacking. Yes, he is. Demon Hart gives him a bit of room though. Bunsell going around the outside. But yeah, you're absolutely right with the tyres. Well, I think one stops are doable, but I think if you're in the pack, there's not much point, because you can pit and get a fresher set of tyres. As Bunsell got very close to the wall, you can pit, get a fresher set of tyres, and get yourself back into the pack pretty quickly, because the pit stops are not going to take that long. As Demon R now having a look up the inside of Fluffy into the final corner. Yeah, the pit stop lengths are going to be. Hang on a minute, Fluffy's coming back at him. That outside line's quite quick there.
Yeah, I think Fluffy was just very patient on the throttle and managed to get round the outside, and now Demon R's going to have another look as he tucks in behind to get the toe. He's got the outside line. I don't think it's as quick through this corner, but Fluffy's made a mistake and it held Demon R up there.
Yeah, Fluffy went a little bit deep, and I think it compromised Demon R on the switchback as Twilight just kicks up a load of dust. Demon R now all over the back of Fluffy into the hairpin, and to be fair, we've got David Hart, Bunsell, Rich Blues, and I think it's formerly Gary there, as well as into the barrier. Twilight goes. Yeah, Fluffy and Demon R going side by side. Are they? No, Demon R backs out of it. Probably the wise thing to do there. David Hart's had a couple of questionable moments through these S's over the last couple of laps, but looking comfortable on this occasion. But Gary is now all over his rear wing. The other thing to mention as well, Connor, about these cars, especially as these guys are heading down towards the bus stop, is you mentioned when you're following someone it gets a little bit tricky with the dirty air, but when you're following someone at this part of the track, you can't see because the back of the car ahead of you is solid. There's no windows. Yeah,
they're very strange looking cars from the back, but they're gorgeous from the front, as we see the three leaders getting away there now.
Conrad's in a little bit of no man's land at the moment, so Demon R has managed to get ahead of Fluffy. What is Fluffy going to be able to do? Demon R heading into the pits, and Fluffy's followed him in. That's quite an interesting. Well, that's a bit of an early pit stop, and Rich Blues into the pits and Twilight. See, that's very early. The tyres can last so much longer. I mean, that would suggest it's a 4-stop race. It isn't.
Yeah, I think is that a very early pit stop there.
Yeah. But
it's still a learning curve, though, isn't it, Dave? I think it's some of these guys don't get to practice on a Monday night with the rest of them. So yeah, this could be their practice and just finding out how the tyres last.
Maybe, or it could be. I mean, Demon R did hit the bus stop earlier on, so he may have put a bit of damage through his tyres. I mean, it's also possible. I mean, I mentioned if you're in the pack, pitting you can get away with pitting and catching back up pretty quickly. So maybe that's what he's decided to do, is pit and then try and push for a few boosted laps. But he's ended up with about 4 cars following him into the pits as Formula Gary coming under pressure from Dave the Harp and Bunsell. Yeah, so Demon R pitted. Oh, Bunsell into the barrier. I think it was Bunsell, or was it Gary? It was Gary.
They're very similar cars, aren't they? I think it was Gary, as he's still spinning around. Yeah, Bunsell's there in 7th place, and the car that's gone into barriers is still there, Dave. So yeah, I think it is Gary.
Right, Steve F1 interestingly is pitted as well. I was about to mention as well, just as we saw that car hitting the barrier, the Demon R had got himself back into that. So yeah, Demon R had pitted. He's now back into 5th place with Fluffy Planet right behind him, who also pitted at the same time. Because the pit stops around this track only take about 7-8 seconds, I think it is, time loss. So you don't lose.
Yeah, it's very quick.
Yeah, you don't lose a lot, and the amount of boost you're going to get on your lap is going to be about 6 to 7 seconds a lap. So if you can get an undercut on someone, it can work really, really well. The thing is, for someone like Steve F1, he's pitted from 3rd. He's going for an undercut on these guys, but he's now in 4th place behind Conrad, so he could compromise himself. He may not be gaining, well, he won't be gaining as much, because you won't get 6 or 7 seconds worth of boost in 4th place. You'd get it in 11th, but not 4th.
Yeah, he's not even near Conrad yet, so he won't even be getting a toe down the straight either. So yeah, he'll be pushing to put some laps in. I mean, these guys are still in the 27s, so he's going to have to find a few 26s, Dave, to get anywhere near these guys.
I think you are absolutely right. You're sounding a little bit down today, Connor. Is everything all right?
Yeah, just keeping concentrating on the race and I've never. We had last season the cars with, Group 4 cars, and they've got these cars darting around a bit. It takes a lot of getting used to it, to watch the cars going through the corners, and we see them just absorb the bump there and get straight on the brakes and through this right hand and back into the fast section. But DGT Seaside seems to be providing a bit of a challenge for these drivers in this car.
It really, really is. Interestingly though, SGP now ahead of Mitch, and Mitch is holding on to the back of him quite nicely. I'm kind of looking at the track map, see how Steve F1's getting on. It doesn't look like he's catching up to Conrad, so Steve F1's sort of undercut not really working at the moment. And also, I mean, pitting when he has done, yeah, he's probably going to be onto a 2-stop strategy. But this is where I think, if you're SGP or Mitch, if you can one-stop it, they're in the perfect position to be able to do that, as they both go flying through the chicane there.
I think there's one of these drivers will be able to one-stop. I don't think the other one will.
Well, would you like any additional information on that one, or are you keeping that one to yourself?
I just think recent championship, how smooth SGP is on any car, and how he does seem to look after the tyres more than most. I think he'll be the one that could maybe get away with doing a one-stop. As we say, Mitch is going to actually have a look down the inside now. I think SGP is going to fight this one through the apex of that corner, but he is going to try and have a go on the exit maybe.
Well, interestingly, SGP kind of dummied as Fluffy is looking at attacking Demon R. Demon R not going defensive, and interestingly SGP didn't do that either. So it's, I think Demon R tried to tuck him behind there but didn't quite do it, and they're still side by side. As Fluffy goes a little bit wide, and I think Demon R's going to be just ahead. Yeah, he's got the inside line into the right hander. Not a lot Fluffy's going to be able to do there. He's got to be careful of Dave the Harp though, who is loitering in the background. The last thing you want is a loitering Dave the Harp near you. You never know what might happen, as Twilight is also closing in on the back of Dave the Harp. But yeah, I was going to mention that, I mean, you're right with SGP looking after his tyres, but also he dummied going into the pits by the looks of it. So the mind games that we were on about, I think he's playing them already for definite, because it would have been easy for Mitch to go, well, other people have pitted already, I'll pit now and change my tyres. But if SGP is just sort of doing what you said, where he's going to look after his tyres, then he could do with Mitch pitting, because that'll put him out of the battle, out of the race, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, and what I have noticed about,
see, he's done it again.
But Mitch has actually gone in this time.
Yeah. Now,
what I have noticed about these cars, is that they do seem to have a lot of downforce on, but if you do try and push the car through a corner, they do understeer a lot, and that does wear down the front tyres of these cars.
Definitely. Interestingly, Steve F1 he's had 3 laps, I think it is, of undercut. So the gap between him and Mitch was only about 4 seconds when Steve F1 pitted. So in those 3-4 laps, he's only just managed to get the undercut on him. These two both definitely onto a 2-stop strategy now. And the interesting thing, or perhaps scary thing, is that, I mean, you mentioned about SGP being smooth on his tyres. He did leak a bit of detail to me that he's been able to go 30 minutes on this particular set of tyres. He said it's not easy, and the last 5 minutes is very difficult and very slow because, as you mentioned, if you push this car through the corners too much, you get understeer. If you've got tyre wear as well, that understeer is even more prominent, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, there's a lot of corners around this track where you do require the front end. I mean, that hairpin there's a lot, and then in the bus stop you don't really want to be having an understeering car close to them walls.
Definitely not.
Or you will end up in the harbour.
I think Demon R's just clipped the barrier again. Yes, he has. Fluffy's got the run on him, and the thing is as well, even the final corner here, if you get understeer through this corner, you're going to lose so much speed down the straight as Conrad heading into the pit lane. So he's on for a 2-stop strategy as well as SGP carries on. So if we look then, the gap between SGP and Steve F1, it's not a massive gap, but SGP knows that the others are definitely going to have another pit stop to do as Conrad comes out of the pits just behind Dave the Harp and Demon R, who come flying past him at full speed. Thankfully Conrad, I think, was able to see them coming. Not a pretty sight, but yeah.
Yeah, it's not been having Newcastle Brown Hill there, has he?
Definitely not.
He's well aware of the cars.
Maybe that's why Demon R at the barrier earlier. Too much alcohol from.
Too much alcohol. Yeah, Conrad's just been supplying them in the cars.
Yeah, we drink bottles and drink bottles empty, fill it up with booze. Okay, what we got, Twilight, interestingly, all over the back of Dave the Harp. And one thing I will say as well, Connor, is obviously this is not like any other car the DGT leagues have ran, but for the majority of the seasons, every driver has liked the cars that have been picked, apart from last season.
No, which drivers didn't like their cars?
I've no idea. I can't remember. But I know with this one, everybody who's driven these cars has literally fallen in love with not only the way they drive, but the noise, the sound these cars make. Now, unfortunately, because we're doing commentary on this, I don't know how the sound's going to come through on the cars, but hopefully it will be to its best effects. As we can see, Twilight side by side with Dave the Harp and Conrad after his pit stop, making a move on Demon R. Is he? No, can't quite get it done. And Demon R going a little bit deep though on the brakes. That's going to compromise his exit, and that'll be an easy pass for Conrad, I think, on the fresher tyres. Yeah, got the inside line. That'll be him done. It'll be interesting now to see what Conrad can do on those fresher tyres, because Demon R's been on his tyres for about 10 minutes, and it could be a big factor in lap time, that amount of wear.
Yeah, it just depends if, he's got a few guys behind him, they're going to be all in the tow. Conrad doesn't really want to be getting caught in that battle. If he can pull away and make no mistakes, then yeah, he could even take down the gap to SGP when SGP comes in, if he gets his toe down and sets some good lap times in.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we've got an interesting scenario now as well, where Mitch is all over the back of Steve F1. I don't know if he's just been looking after his tyres. They can see SGP in the distance, and SGP is going to have to make a pit stop at some point. But SGP, crucially, has got a big enough gap as Twilight and Gary are going side by side into the final corner. Dave the Harp locking up a little bit. That's going to allow Fluffy to get a little bit of a run on him. And interestingly, in one lap, Connor has pulled out about a second and a half on Demon R, as Mitch still stuck behind Steve F1. When I say stuck, probably being patient at the moment, because if these guys fight, SGP can pull away. If these guys don't fight, they can slowly close in on him, which is exactly what's happening, especially as we get to a point of time where it doesn't matter how good a driver you are, these tyres are now going to be losing about an extra second a lap. So I wouldn't be surprised if SGP is kind of in the 129s at the moment.
Yeah, he's a very consistent driver, SGP though, so I wouldn't be surprised if he's still in mid-28s to low 28s. If that's the pace he can run, then he should be okay for another few laps.
He could be. Dave Hart is definitely having fun through the S's, is Dave Hart.
He definitely twitchy handed coming out of that. In a few cars now that have had a good wobble on.
But the thing is, you can have a wobble in this car and you can survive. You can have a wobble and it can go horribly wrong as well, though. But I was going to mention as well that one of the crucial things for SGP is it's not Conrad's into the barrier. That's going to hurt his tyres and that's going to put him under pressure. I think Demon R and Dave Hart will be pleased to see that. Actually, Dave Hart will be, because he's got a run on Demon R. I think Demon R may have hit the barrier as well.
Yeah, he just glanced at coming out of the corner, and Conrad's managed to stay in front, but yeah, Damon R just managed to glance at coming out of the corner. And speaking of surviving, Dave, I heard the founder of Dulux was found dead on top of a mountain.
Oh God, okay, go on.
Police spokesman said he needed another coat.
Oh God, oh my. You know what, I thought I'm not going to do jokes this championship. Now you've done that, game on. Something I was going to mention though, not about dodgy jokes, because that was a bad one. SGP, right, he will not care where Steve F1 and Mitch are at the moment, because there's one other important factor that he's interested in. Well, two. One of them is the time. He doesn't want to pit until he's halfway through the race, preferably. And number two, getting out ahead of the pack. If he gets out ahead of the pack, he's in a race winning position. If he pits and ends up in the pack, he's in trouble. And so for SGP, even though Mitch and Steve F1 have caught him up now and they're right on his gearbox, he doesn't mind that. He's not going to be bothered about that. He can try and put him off a bit here if he wants. He can try and hold him up a bit if he wants. It doesn't matter. The crucial bit is where the rest of the pack are. And that pack is currently headed by Conrad, Demon R, David Hart, Bunsell and Rich Blues.
Yeah, and they're not that far behind. They've just all come out of the bus stop and they're heading into this last corner. So yeah, but I mean the pit stops don't really take that much off the time, like you were saying before. It's a very quick pit stop, and it'll be hoping that he comes out in front of them. If we've got Steve F1 looking around the outside, and just fresher tyres, uses the brake and to go right round the outside, and now that's going to put them under pressure from Mitch, as Mitch is going to go down the inside, I think, into this little kink as they go side by side. This is brave. Yeah, SGP just concedes the place.
That he does. I mean, with the worn tyres, not a lot he can do there. David Hart has managed to stay ahead of Twilight. Twilight can now come under pressure from Gary. Gary having a look. He's going to be all over that curb though. Manages to survive up the inside. Oh, they're going to have to be careful though. They're going to be compromised. Bunsell's going to have a run on them here. Maybe. Nearly. Just maybe. No, he's managed to get one of them. He's slotted in between them.
You don't want Bunsell having a run on your day going into the corner like that. He's flashing the lights. Right, there we go, Dave. If we just have a look at SGP's times, 28, and then
couple of 29s.
Couple of 29s, so yeah, he's losing at least a second and a half every lap.
Oh!
Is that Mitch?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's just glanced at it now. Mitchell, he's driven such a good race halfway through. It's the first time he's hit the wall.
You know, he'll
not be happy about that.
Well, I think he actually will be, given how his practice has gone. He's hit the wall so many times in practice that to go 25 minutes and that's the most he's hit it so far is good stuff. Okay, SGP into the pits. I mean, we saw what was happening with his lap times. Is he going to come out ahead of Conrad or behind him? He might come out behind him, yeah, he will, but he won't mind that because Conrad's got another pit stop to make from the looks of things. The important bit, as I mentioned, is the rest of the pack, and SGP is ahead of the rest of the pack, interestingly, because some of those guys have also made pit stops, so that's played into SGP's hands quite nicely. But he may be in a situation now where he could be closing in on Conrad, and we saw Connor go flying away from Demon R earlier on, but if his tyres are now wearing, that could switch things around a little bit.
Yeah, Conrad will be the one looking in the mirrors now if SGP gets them tyres switched on quick, as we've got Fluffy closing right in on Bunsell there. The closing speed was crazy is he's going to do 2 cars as he round the outside. That's very brave.
It is very brave. Bunsel's still there, to be fair. Fluffy's still going to try it up the inside of Gary. Is he late on the brakes? Bunsel thinks, you know what, that's not a fight I want to get involved in, and I don't blame him, because he may now pick up a free place on the exit of the corner. No, Gary's trying to stay ahead of Bunsel and also trying to attack Fluffy at the same time as Davey Arp sparks up a bag on the wall. Oh, who's there in the background? I'm sure someone just clipped the barrier there.
Yeah, I think if that was if that was the last season, early on in the season, I think Bunsel would have stuck his nose in that hairpin. But yeah, he's just being very patient now.
That he is. Dave the Harp into the pits. Though somebody else followed him in there as well. I couldn't quite see who it was. Might have been at Bunsel, as Demon R and Formula Gary now side by side, and there a little bit of contact between the two of them, but I think they'll both survive. Fluffy leading them into the first chicane. I've got to say, it's been very interesting battles so far, as Fluffy got very, very sideways there. I mean, we've not seen any sort of major crashes or carnage. I mean, okay, people have hit the barrier in the bus stop, but that can happen. But what I mean is that we've not really seen anybody going for dodgy overtakes and causing loads of chaos.
You know, I think everyone looks much happier in these cars than, you know, what we've seen. Everyone in the same cars, just about who can drive them best. And there's been a few guys having a good race today, and obviously these guys have been stuck together. So I think we'll see a lot of overtakes from now until the end as the strategies come into play.
Yeah, definitely. Fluffy coming under a lot of pressure again, and Rich Blues slowly closing into the back of this pack as well. I'm just trying to have a look at what's happening up at the front. Oh, who was that?
So that was Fluffy.
Oh,
hit the wall and coming into the corner, and that carried him into the opposite wall.
That's a disaster for Fluffy then. He may be tempted to take a new set of tyres at that point, as we're having a look at SGP closing in on Conrad. I mean, SGP's first lap at the pits 26.8. So, that's a bit of a dive. Well, you know what? I just said we're not seeing anybody go for any stupid overtakes, and SGP goes and does that. I can only...
Yeah, he nearly rolled his car as well then.
I can only think that there was some kind of failure there. Rich! Oh, that's so unfortunate. He got beached on the curb and it speared him into the barrier. He's got to be careful now as Dimnar, Gary and Fluffy start closing in on him. But that's costly for SGP. I mean, I can only guess that there was some kind of a failure there, because it's not something he'd normally do. Go for
My assistant tells me he missed the brake pedal.
Oh, right, okay. He didn't miss Conrad, did he?
No, I didn't miss Conrad.
He maybe used Conrad's brake pedal instead. Okay, but that is costly for SGP though, because now the gap between him and Steve F1 and Mitch is big enough that these guys can pit and come out in front of him. Oh dear.
Yeah, I can tell you the Conrad brake pedal doesn't work very well either. But Steve F1 coming into the pits now.
That's interesting that Mitch did not follow him in. Okay, if Mitch not following him in there would suggest to me that Mitch maybe thinks he can't get 20 minutes out of a set of tyres, because we're 30 minutes in, 20 minutes to go. SGP round 2 on Conrad into turn technically 2, and Conrad giving SGP loads of room, and SGP not making the move. Steve F1 has come out ahead of these guys, so that just goes to show how crucial that crash ended up being, because I think both Conrad and SGP would have been ahead of Steve F1.
Yeah, I think it might have compromised Conrad's race a little bit. I think he was hoping to be closer to the two guys in front, but yeah, it's compromised SGP more as he's on a one-stop now, so he's going to have to chase down the guys in front.
Right, that he is. SGP's got a decent run here on the back of Conrad by the looks of things. Is he going to go for it down into the hairpin? He's having a look, but no, thinking better of it. And I mean, one of the things I do like about these cars is that even though, yes, they're very fast and they can be very darty, as you put it, but they're very drivable. So you can have a look at putting pressure on people and not necessarily going for moves, but just trying to put that sort of moment of doubt in a driver's mind of what's going to be happening around them, so that you can then really try and pounce, because like you hinted at earlier on, if you push this car too much, especially on the way into corners, you're slow on the way out, very slow. But if you go into the corners nicely, you can be so much faster on the exit. And SGP got a decent exit out of the final corner, got the slipstream, got the move into turn 1. That's how he should have done it 2 laps ago, and then he would have been in second place.
Yeah, fortunately it doesn't always work out, and if you miss a brake pedal, that will happen. But yeah, he's fast now, and the only thing with SGP now, Dave, is that he's got to make his tyres last if he's on a one stop, but he's also got to try and push to get back up with the leaders, and it's going to be interesting to see what he's going to do now.
Yeah, it definitely is, as we're looking now at Fluffy. He's been in full of action today as Twilight's got himself a little bit out of shape going up the S's. That's going to compromise him. Fluffy, I think, may have had to lift out of that one a little bit, but can still make the move, and yes, he does. Twilight's done well there to hold on to the car. And to be fair, Bunsel's keeping pace with these guys at the moment, and I think Rich Blues is closing in on them as well. Bunsel's actually going for the move on Twilight.
Yeah, they're all side by side now, aren't they? They don't want to be going side by side through here, I tell you that for certain.
Oh, you're absolutely right. I think they've all managed to get through there just about. I don't think there's going to be a single car that hasn't got a scratch on it somewhere by the end of this race. But Dave the Harp it is that is closing in rapidly on the back of the pack here. Yeah, I mean, I've got to say, I've been very Twilight's going so well out of shape in the final corner there. I think he's going for the pit lane. Yes, he is. That might be why he was out of shape then. Perhaps his tyres taking too much of a pounding. Bunsell having a look at making the move on Fluffy. Takes the inside line, which becomes the outside line. Fluffy's got the slipstream though, and now Dave the Art making the move up the inside on a Bunsell. Lovely bit of driving there. Bunsell good for the switchback though.
Yeah, giving each other a lot of space there as well. That was good to see, as we got Fluffy now chasing Demonard. Demonard just clips that curve and straight onto the brakes on top of the curve. It's got to be careful there, because that curve can throw you off a bit if you do try and brake too hard on it.
That's true. I mean, we did see Rich spinning on one of the other curbs earlier on as well. We're looking now though at Mitch, who Steve F1 pitted 3.5-4 minutes ago, so I can only guess that Mitch felt that for his own strategy, for his last stint on tyres, he needed to keep going for a bit, which is understandable. It's fair enough. Steve F1, I'm wondering whether he saw that SGP had the crash, lost a load of time, and thought, you know what, I can pit and come out ahead of him. SGP's pulled away from Conrad. I think his tyres are on the way out, as we see a few cars wiggling massively through the chicane. Oh, Gary, he's smashed it into the barrier. That's unfortunate for him, as 2 cars coming past him, and they managed to miss him just. So Mitch has carried on.
Yeah, that's one thing you've got to watch out with these cars. You might lose a lot of time spinning off, but what you will lose a lot of time is trying to quickly turn back around to get back on, because this car does not like first gear.
Yeah, absolutely right. And also, if you try spinning around when there's cars are coming in, you end up unghosted and they hit you, you're going to be losing even more time. Okay, David Harp has pitted. I think Conrad's going to have another pit stop to do as well. He's still behind. He's still behind SGP, but he's actually falling into the clutches a little bit of Demon Art. But I've got to say, you know what? Fluffy, for me, has been extremely impressive here. He spent most of the race right up Demon R's gearbox, and not an easy thing to do that, but that's exactly what he's been able to do. Yeah,
not in this car either. It's you can't drive up close to someone going through the corners. He goes a little bit wide there, and they're actually gaining on Conrad now, as Conrad tyres are on the way out.
I think they are. I think Mitchell looked a little bit close there. Interestingly, Steve F1 and SGP, that gap is definitely coming down, and it'll be interesting to see what's going to happen there. Conrad's lost a lot of time. I can only think that his tyres are pretty much done. As Fluffy clipped the barrier, that may give Bunsell a run on him. I'm not surprised we're seeing people clip the barrier through there, because, as we've already mentioned, it isn't easy to follow in these cars. Fluffy ran a little bit wide, and Conrad is into the pits for his last set of tyres, I would guess. So he's going to come out behind the pack, but we already know he's quick, and he's going to have a brand new set of tyres on. Twilight also in the pits.
Yeah, I think Conrad will be hoping for a top 5 at least, but he's got to get past some very quick guys, and they're all having their own individual race, and they won't let him pass. As we see, Demonard just chucking a dust up in front of Fluffy's face there.
I'm just trying to think when Demon R last pitted. I'm pretty sure he pitted about 10-15 minutes ago. I don't know if he can get to the end. I don't know if Fluffy can get to the end or Bunsell can get to the end either. I think these guys might have another pit stop to do. I suppose it's one of those things that, I mean, yes, we mentioned you may be able to do a 1-stop, and a 2-stop is easily doable, but if you do pit very, very early, you may find yourself having to do an additional stop if the tyres won't take it. It's kind of like catch-22. If you pit very early, but then so you can push and really go for lap time, it's going to come at the cost of hammering tyres.
Yeah, and you've got to get that right, because you can't pit too early, or else you're going to find yourself ending up doing a 3-stop, or at least losing a lot of time at the end of the race if you're planning on sticking to a 2-stop. As you see Mitch coming into the pits, yes he is.
Yep. So see, Mitch has clearly opted his strategy 2-stop. That's what he was doing. He completely ignored the fact that Steve F1 pitted and got the undercut on him. Nearly 8 minutes ago. He didn't care about that. It was all about his own tyres and his own strategy, and he's not that far behind SGP and Steve F1 as the battle between Bunsell and David Hart continues on, and Conrad, who has just come out of the pits on the last lap, now closes in, and this is where Conrad needs to make moves as fast as possible, really, if he wants the benefit of the tyres.
Yeah, he doesn't want to be leaving it too late to start making his moves. He's just going to have a look at Bunsell down the outside into this corner. Yeah, he gets that move done and just moves across to make sure.
Nice move there. I mean, that's the thing with the fresher tyres. He's going to have a couple of laps of much more grip than everybody else around him. What he's going to have to be careful of is that he doesn't push it too hard, though, as they go 3 wide down into the hairpin. Conrad just manages to get ahead, so done exactly what he needed to do. Now he needs to just go and get after Demonar and dispatch him, and then he can focus on whether he'd be able to catch up to the leaders, because to be fair, the leaders are not that far away. Even though he's going, oh God, Conrad is into the barrier. He loves that wall, and I think someone else was as well, Fluffy.
Yeah, it didn't even look like he clipped it. It looked like his wing mirror had put him in there.
Oh!
Yeah, that was, yeah, that's what happens when you come round unsighted into there. His Gary's just went through his own arsehole, I think, there.
Yeah, well, Fluffy definitely went through it. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting, though, that we've had, obviously, multiple pit stops, but, yeah, the leaders are not that far away from the majority of the rest of the pack. So Demon R, I don't know if he has got another pit stop to do. 12 minutes to go, I don't know. He might want to pit for a fresh set of tyres. Got nothing else to lose at the moment, but I think if he does, I wouldn't be surprised if we see others do exactly the same as Conrad, now closing in on the back of David Hart. So interestingly, even though Conrad actually clipped the barrier there, he's not actually really lost anything. He's only lost one position because 2 other cars crashed around him as well.
Yeah, he's going to, hopefully he needs to try and get through here as we see, go on board with SGP now. As SGP has closed the gap to Steve F1, but it seems to have nullified itself, and it's sticking around 1.5 seconds as we got Mitch is going to now try and chase them both down as well in 3rd place.
Oh, SGP, that's a big crash. He's hit the
He'll
wall.
not be bragging about that, will he?
He won't. He definitely will not be. Oh, and he's hit the wall again. Oh dear, the Demon R's just gone flying through, and there comes the pack. Oh, it's all gone wrong for SGP. I think Twilight has just scraped the barriers as well. Interestingly though, SGP actually hit the wall full on the left, and which speared him over to the right, and it can be done. I mean, it usually means a slight lapse in concentration because you've turned in too soon, really, or you've ended up with more grip than you was expecting. SGP's realised, okay, he's going to pretty much near the back, get a fresh set of tyres and see what he can do. I think he's out of the running for the win of the race here. Bunsell into the pits as well, as formerly Gary trying to recover from his crash in the bus stop.
That means we've got an interesting race on for the last place in the podium now, Dave.
You know what? You're absolutely right. We've currently got. Oh, someone just gone deep there. I think.
SGP.
Yeah. Oh dear. I wonder. Yeah. I'm not entirely sure what's happened there. I think Rich has just given him a little nudge as well. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Conrad, who's ahead of Dave the Harp here, on the freshest tyres of the 3 cars around him. Demonard just up the road, who is currently sitting in 3rd place. So yeah, Conrad's in a great position at the moment. Steve F1 though, he is as well. I mean, he's on a 2-stop strategy, but has managed to fend Mitch off for now. But Steve F1's tyres are going to be, well, they're 11 minutes, no, they're 8 minutes older than Mitch's. That could be massive in the last stages of this race.
Yeah, it's about six or 7 laps, isn't it? It's a lot of laps, as well as what I was going to say to you as well, Dave, when we say Mitch Pitt, he did extend his middle stint quite a lot, and he seems to have maximise the tyres to get a shorter stint at the end, but have fresher tyres for longer. Yeah,
you could be absolutely right there. Interestingly, Demonard did dive into the pits ahead of Conrad there, as SGP making the move on Rich Blues. Rich Blues will slot into his slipstream and hopefully attack him into turn 1 and 2, and we'll see if he can get the move done. Is he going to go for it? SGP goes defensive. I've got to say, if you're the likes of Rich or Bunsell or anyone like that, if you've got someone like SGP defending against you, that means, I think, I would see that as, okay, I see you as a bit of a threat. Not a danger, but I think you've got the ability to attempt the overtake on me in this corner, so I've got to defend you.
Yeah, what I would probably do if I was a guy like Rich, I would just use him as a reference and just follow him around and see if they can catch up to the back of the pack and maybe get a fewer through cars. As they actually catching these 4 cars now, Demon R's might end up in a battle with SGP now.
You know what, you could be absolutely right. SGP is closing in on the back of the pack, and Demon R has recently pitted for a fresh set of tyres, and SGP trying to get side by side with him through the bus stop. They both managed to get through there just. David Harp, I think, has just clipped the barrier. This is now going to get very, very close on the run down to the final corner. Demon R boxing in SGP behind Dave the Harp, realising that SGP is definitely a threat. We've got 5 different lines being used around the final corner. Let's see which one's going to work.
Yeah, Damon had just got a better run out of 3 cars there, but now SGP is going to get boxed over onto the grass. It's going to be interesting as we're going to go through this kink here into the correct turn 1 as they all brake really hard there. SGP's managed to somehow find his way through and past 2 cars there. He's going to get a 3rd car on the exit of Bunsell. Oh, yeah. Oh, this is getting interesting how Rich Blues and Fluffy join the back.
Oh no!
Oh, we got Bunsell boxing over the grass there.
I think he may have been held.
Glad that suspension working there.
Either that or Demon, what are you doing? You don't want to be on the curb there or the grass there. Oh, he's well out of shape here. He's going to have to be careful as Fluffy is now all over the back of him. Okay, Demon.
Somebody told these guys there's half price on at the supermarket or something. They're all throwing. Yeah, that's point proven there as they go through that corner.
But there's still 3 wide. Fluffy, Demon, and Formula Gary round the hairpin.
I'm not moving.
Let's see. I think Gary's actually got ahead. Yes, he has. Demon slots in behind him. Davey Arp scratches the barrier once. Oh no, he smashes the barrier. That's costly for Davey Arp at this late stage in the race. That's just freed up SGP though. But if he looks in his mirrors, he's going to see absolute mayhem as Mitch is closing in on Steve F1 now. Oh, okay, so we've definitely got a battle for the lead of the race. Conrad sitting in 3rd, all on his own at the moment. But yeah, that battle, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, I think it's still kicking off down the main straight.
Yeah, we had a few mental corners there, and it turned out that SGP managed to come through. Demon R, after all that, has come through as well in 6th. God knows how they managed to get through there, but yeah, let's see a few positions swapping again as we've got Mitch now having a look at this. Is Steve F1, he's going to have the outside line, which is his favourite line, as we've seen in many championships. He's going to brake very late. Great move.
Well, interestingly, I think Steve F1 got a little bit out of shape going into the S's, and it just compromised him all the way up and over the hill and down the hill, and it was a great move by Mitch, and he's now, with the fresher tyres, is in a brilliant situation to put pressure on the likes of Steve F1, because basically Mitch doesn't need to take any risks. Demon R though making the move on Fluffy, or at least defending from Fluffy, as SGP is right ahead of him. So we've got a fantastic situation now where we've got, what, 4 minutes 20 to go. We probably haven't seen the last of the cars hitting the barrier down here. No, we haven't, because there's one.
There's about 3 there, Dave. SGP was one of them.
Oh, yeah, he was, and he's lost out. Now he's going for having a look up the inside of Demon R into the final corner. Now, it may appear that this is starting to get a little bit frantic into the later stages of the race, but I don't necessarily think it's that. If you've got drivers who know what their competitors' level of ability is, then you know what you can do when you're side by side with them. Was Davey Hart got a little bit wobbly in the background. SGP trying to make the move around the outside, manages to do it, but is Demon R going to go for the switchback? He kind of has to cover off Fluffy, but he's got a decent run on SGP. This is fantastic.
This is a lot of cars battling over 50. You see them all coming into that corner there. We've got a few guys in the background. We're now separated into 2 groups. We've got the 4 guys there, and then this 3 that's trying to chase them back down again.
We have, Rich Blues has got a really good run on the back of Fluffy here. He's all over the curb though. So is someone else. That was formerly Gary. Got to be so careful there. Demon R going defensive on Fluffy. Yeah, that may put Fluffy under pressure from Rich Blues. No, Fluffy covers Rich off, but now Gary trying to make a switchback on Rich, and Fluffy going for the switchback on Demon R into the bus stop side by side. No, he backs out of it. Don't blame him.
Dave the Hart and Gary were side by side in the background there as well. As you've got the cars coming through and everyone's bunching up. This
is absolutely thrilling. The hairs on my arms are sticking up. As Rich and Fluffy get a little bit physical together, that's going to allow Bunsell to slot through. This is so exciting. While this is happening, I'm just trying to look at what's happening up at the front. Mitch is pulling away from Steve F1. The bugger all Steve F1 can do about it, I think. Conrad's sitting comfortably in 3rd place at the moment. There's Demon R now trying to have another look at SGP. SGP made the move on him in these corners last time around. Now it's Demon R's turn. This is fantastic, but this is going to give Fluffy a decent run now. Demon R says, no, you Fluffy, you stay where you are, mate.
Although these guys are battling, they are actually coming up onto the back of Twilight as well. I just noticed you could see Twilight there was... Dave the Hart is great warming the tyres up there.
He's definitely not going to suffer in wins. Demon R, where's he going? Fluffy, where's he going? No, this has all gone wrong. Demon R's going to end up in the barrier, is he? No, he manages to miss it. Now Gary, he's sliding off. And I think he's just annihilated Bunsell.
Yeah, definitely some rough justice there, wasn't it?
That there was. Okay, let's go for a bit of calmness, shall we? What are we, 48 and a half? I think we might be starting the last lap of the race, Mitch may be starting the last lap of the race. We'll have to wait and see. Steve F1 still 2nd, Conrad 3rd, Twilight 4th, and you're right, SGP is closing in on Twilight, and is bringing along Fluffy and Rich Blues at the moment. It'll be interesting to see if all those guys that had a crash are going to be able to sort of get back into this pack as well. I know Twilight has done a lot of pit stops in this race. I don't know when his last pit stop was, but he may be in a situation where his tyres are dying a little bit.
Yeah, he's done well all race, Twilight. He has, but he's coming into a very dangerous part of the race where he could not only lose one, he could lose a few with these guys catching.
That he could. So have a look at Demon R making a move on Bunsell. Bunsell holding his own, giving plenty of room there, and flashing his lights. Probably at disgust of being overtaken, but I've got to say Bunsell his improvement in his driving recently has been absolutely phenomenal, and it is brilliant to see. It was something I actually forgot to mention at the end of the last championship, that he started the last championship with getting a few hefty penalties, but I don't think he had any penalties for the last 6 races, 5 races, something like that. Absolutely brilliant stuff as SGP is making the move on Twilight. You evil, evil man, as we are on the last lap of the race. The 50 minutes are now up. Midge is into the final corner already, so SGP has stolen the position of Twilight on the last lap, but Mitch, he's not a disappointment anymore. He takes the victory. Steve F1 is going to take the 2nd place. I think he'll actually be pretty pleased with that, as Conrad's going to cross the line in 3rd. SGP currently sitting in 4th place, and Dave the Hart, Demon R and Fluffy Planet all swapping places in the final corner. So SGP is going to cross the line in 4th, with Twilight 5th, Demon R 6th, Dave the Hart 7th, Fluffy 8th, I think Formula Gary 9th, Rich Blues 10th, and Bunsell, who's had a very good race, I've got to say, handbraking it across the line. Holy cow, what a race.
I think he'll be disappointed there, Bunsell, with that race.
Yeah.
Just found himself right at the back there.
I don't know if something happened to him at the end there. He may have done. But yeah, I've got to say, that was a bloody brilliant race. That I've got a very exciting. Probably means the next race is going to be absolute carnage. Now, I hinted there that Mitch is not a disappointment anymore. I will state that I have received so much grief for my misuse of the English language on the last race of the last championship. I didn't mean that Mitch was a disappointment. What I meant was that I think he'd underachieved in the last championship. But yeah, everybody...
I thought he was terrible.
Well, yeah, so did some others. But what I will say is, I'm more than happy to be proven wrong, right? So for me, okay, if it was a disappointment last championship, he definitely ain't this one, because he's just taken pole position and the win. If so,
yeah,
it's kind of like
very happy.
Yeah, it was kind of like the Bottas situation, isn't it? To those who, I can't remember what the
to those who may concern.
Fuck
yeah.
Yeah. Basically, yeah.
Fuck off.
Yeah. But I mean, I've got to say, the interesting thing for me with Mitch there though is that, and this is no negative whatsoever, is that in practice he hit the bus stop wall a lot, and he was not looking forward to this race at all. But he's done the right thing about it. Take a bit off, going through those chicanes, and just make sure you get through it without hitting the wall. What'll be will be then. What it's ended up doing is, because he's not really hit the wall through there and ended up in a crash, he's ended up being in a situation where he can win the race, and he's done it brilliantly. So sometimes, we've said it before, go slower to go faster, and for Mitch it's worked there. For the likes of Demon R, SGP, pushing too hard I think through the bus stop, and they've both ended up in the barriers. Conrod's ended up in the barriers there a few times. I don't know why, I don't know what could have happened there.
No idea.
Yeah, same here.
I don't think, to be fair, if you watched this practice on Monday night, I think you'd be very happy to hit the wall at least 4 times.
Yeah. It's one of those things though with that track. It doesn't matter how good a driver you are, everybody can hit that wall at any point. It's just one of those things. It can happen. And I mean, this car handles curbs quite nicely for the most part, so the curbs going through there aren't really the problem. A lot of the time it's the speed or the line you're on, or the fact you're behind another car so you can't perhaps see, or, and this is something that can happen as well, you can go too far the opposite way. You can go, okay, I'm going to lift off through here, but you lift off more than you really should, so when you turn more and you end up hitting the barrier. So when we saw SGP, where I said he hit the wall full on the left hand side, that kind of looked a bit like one where he was probably not taking it at 160 mile an hour, probably taking it at 150. He steered the same amount as normal, but the car's turned more, and that's why he's ended up in the barrier. So it can happen. But I've got to say, an absolutely brilliant, exciting race. I want to ask you though, Connor, what were your thoughts on the rolling start?
I do prefer a grid start, with obviously the amount of positions you see swapping about and everything, but I think a rolling start in them cars, I think it just suits the championship, I think.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. I mean, I do prefer a standing start myself, but it's one of those things. Le Mans uses rolling starts, and these are Le Mans cars, so that's one of the reasons for doing it. Another is first gear in these cars.
I was just about to say a few people would struggle.
Yeah.
I think we'll see a few pirouettes.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, for anyone that doesn't know either, in these cars, do not use first gear. Even if you have a crash and spin, you don't need to use first gear. It's an evil gear. But Yeah, it's going to be very interesting as well, though, to see how the rolling start will work at different circuits, because at Fuji, it shouldn't be a problem. Everyone will be on the straight. We could see a few positions change there because of the length of the straight at Fuji, but there are other tracks where it could be a little bit more difficult. I'm trying to think, are we racing at Suzuka in this championship? Yes, we are. It's possible the people at the very back of the grid could be in a corner at the start of the race, or even Le Mans, the last race of the season. There's a good chance everybody other than the top 3 cars are going to have to drive through the chicane before they start the lap. So it is going to definitely throw a spanner in the works at a few locations, I think.
Yeah, I think there's a few guys might be caught out with the location of the start finish line and where they start. So I think there'll be a few drivers just gambling on the strategy if they get caught out with on the rolling start. I mean, like you say, there's a few tracks where it could be a bit controversial, but the guys will just have to qualify where they can and just race on from there. I mean, they'll benefit from Bruce anyway.
Yep.
So it's a long race now as well, Dave, with the extra 10 minutes. So anything can happen.
Yeah, absolutely right. And I mean, the thing is as well, I know with the different tyre choices, well, we're at Fuji Short next. That's the one without the chicane. If you know Fuji, you know which one I mean. And we're on a different tyre compound, so it's the soft tyre at Fuji, which wasn't a tyre I thought we'd be using there, but it kind of comes down to the time of day. That's the right tyre for that track for the time of day. You go off for a harder compound tyre, there's not a lot of grip in it and it's not very nice to drive, but that soft compound tyre should be pretty good around Fuji, and it should still be able to potentially do the one stop. And that's the one thing I know the guys have tried to focus on this season, is that for the tyres that you can do a one stop. And some drivers may find that they can go absolutely rapid from lap 1, but they might get 15-20 minutes and the tyres are now dying. Or they could take a little bit off but still push like mad and get to 20-25 minutes. But it's that kind of situation of, okay, you can push hard and burn your tyres up and do an extra pit stop, and it's not going to cost you that much, but there's a risk of getting stuck in the pack. So we saw the likes today of, I mean, Demon R, Fluffy, Dave the Harp, all in the pack together, and not one of them could get away from each other.
Yeah.
And it is brilliant to see, but that's the risk of, I mean, I think Demon R pitted at one point to get away from Fluffy, and Fluffy followed him into the pits. So, I mean, you can't blame Fluffy for doing it, because he's basically saying, well, you're not getting a boost on me, I'm going to follow you in, I'm going to do what you're doing. That's fair enough, it works.
We're going to have a big tour at Fuji as well. There's a long straight, and if people get the exit of that last corner right, we could see a few overtakes going down into the first corner. But
definitely
at Fuji, there's the exit of the first corner, there's a very dangerous curve, and if a few people get that wrong, then we might see a few people spinning.
You know what, I'm glad you've mentioned that, because that is a curb that is, I personally, for me, it's notorious as it's a dangerous curb. If you get on it, you have two choices. One, ignore it and power through and hope you don't spin, or lift off. And normally, if you power through, you're spinning. It's literally, it is that simple. If you're on it, you have to be prepared to the fact that you're going to be crashing, because you've got to save the car in that situation. What I will say to all of the drivers, though, is even turn 1 at Fuji is not a first gear corner. Use second gear. You'll save yourself a lot of spins. But yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see how we get on there. It's also going to be interesting to see how it'll be with hopefully more drivers on the grid, because obviously, unfortunately, this week it's just one of those days where it's turned out that 5 or 6 of the guys are unable to race today. Jason flying, Tyler studying, SRI sleeping, who else was the Hay and his son-in-law both out. So yeah, Jimmy unable to race. So it's unfortunate they were not able to race today, but hopefully, I mean, it's not like we've lost them, and they should be back on the grid next week. What I hope next week is a similar race to this, where it is just exciting all the way through. I mean, there's going to be times where crashes happen, shit happens, and it can't be helped. But as long as it's exciting, it's going to be worth watching.
Yeah, definitely.
Right, okay, Connor, I'm going to say thank you very much for joining us on commentary.
Yeah, no problem. I enjoyed the race. It was very entertaining.
That it was, and I will leave you with this. Insight: beauty is only a light switch away. Right, let's have a look at what that race, the confirmed race result, and the championship standings are like after that. Here we go then with confirmation of the race result for round 1 from the DGT Seaside. Mitch, gotta say, great result for him, pole position and the win. I am disappointed though, I thought he'd smash the wall and he didn't. Second place goes to Steve F1, a good result for him. Conrad, fantastic result for him, taking third place. SGP stealing fourth off Twilight on the last lap, but a good result and recovery for SGP and a good result for Twilight. Demon R finished in 6th place, past Dave the Harp and Fluffy Planet on the last corner of the last lap. In 9th place was Formula Gary, and then in 10th place is Rich Blue, scores 6 points, but unfortunately receives a 3-point penalty for an incident with Buntle, I believe, on the final corner, yes, it's a shame for Rich that, but at the same time, sometimes accidents do happen. For Bunsell though, I think he was on for a potential 9th or 10th place finish, but it is 11th, but still a 5-point haul for him. And as we mentioned, a few drivers missing from today's race. Okay, let's have a look at what that has done then for the championship standings, and it is going to be slightly different than the race result. So Mitch, he's going to lead the way after race 1, maximum 20 points. Steve F1 second place on 17, Conrad 15 points, SGP 13, Twilight on 11 points, Demon R on 10, Dave the Harp in 7th on 9 points, and then Fluffy Planet in 8th on 8. I've got to say, Fluffy, Dave had a fantastic race today. In 9th place is Formula Gary on 7 points, and then it's Bunsell in 10th place on 5 points, and then Rich Blues drops to 11th because of the 3-point penalty, but he's still got 3 points. SRI, Tyler, Jason, Jimmy and Hay all unable to race today. Hopefully we'll see them next week, and we do have the reserve driver of Ricky, otherwise known as Cyber Gypsy, waiting in the wings, who also was unavailable for today's race, as there was a reserve driver available for him, which is a bit of a shame. Okay, next up on the calendar is the Fuji Short Circuit. We've got racing soft tyres. We're up in the mountains, or near the mountain of Fuji. It's going to be an interesting track for these cars, that's for certain, and perhaps probably the grippiest car we've driven around there for quite some time. Anyway, thanks for watching. Feel free to hit like and subscribe, and yeah, if you want to check out the action from Fuji, you know what to do. Come and take a look next week. Have a good one, everybody. We'll see you all again soon.